Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to read just a few shorties from the book here. You can all hear, right? The amazing thing about writing this was that I had no idea which kind of stories would make it in and which ones were out until I was actually sort of shaping the whole story and trying to tell one major through line. So I was incredibly surprised when I got done with the whole thing to realize that there are no fewer than 4 stories about the Beatles in this book. And you know, I mean, I like the Beatles a lot, but I had no idea I liked them that much. So I'm going to read a couple, at least 2 or 3 of these Beatles stories for you. So here's the first one, and it's from the very earliest section of the book, and it's called The Long and Winding Road. George Harrison was coming to the Nassau Coliseum in Long Island. To my ecstatic 16-year-old ears, the news seemed too good to be true. In those days, a Beatle just didn't tour. Even more incredible, my friend Patty and I had inexplicably been granted permission to travel by Greyhound bus all the way to New York, alone, to see the concert. I was 6 years old when the Beatles played the Ed Sullivan Show. After a relatively brief "Paul is so cute" phase, I moved on to the Monkees along with most of the other kids I knew. Because, let's face it, Davy Jones was even cuter. Rediscovering the Beatles a year or 2 after they'd already broken up and fallen off the pop cultural radar altogether, I belatedly became a single-minded devotee. They hadn't toured live since I was small, and over the intervening years, I'd come to think of the Beatles as something akin to papal figures, elevated beings who could be heard and witnessed on film or radio, yet never experienced in live audience. This miraculous George Harrison show would be my first opportunity to see a living, breathing Beatle in the flesh. I had a month to prepare myself for this landmark concert event. What to wear? Nothing ordinary would do. My clothing had to express the very essence of sincere devotion. I bought a child-sized Fruit of the Loom tee, dyed it black in a pot on the stove. There were no such things as concert tees yet, at least not where I lived, but I was making one, and I knew exactly what to put on it. There was this odd squiggle that appeared somewhere on every George Harrison album cover. I had no idea what the squiggle meant, this side up in Hindustani for all I knew, but I used to gaze at that symbol lovingly for hours, tracing its shape over and over with my finger as I listened to his records. I just really liked the way it looked. So I bought a mess of tiny glass bugle beads in a pretty shade of iridescent dusty pink, and spent the month painstakingly hand-beating that mysterious squiggle onto the front of my shirt. Night after night, as I worked to create those undulating swirls, my mind would empty itself of conscious thought and become filled instead with the blissfully transcendent sitar strains of all my favorite Harrison songs, played over and over again on the stereo. I've looked back and wondered about that shirt many times since, yet it was only a couple of years ago that the squiggle's meaning finally dawned on me. One day, while flipping idly through an illustrated book on Eastern spirituality, I suddenly saw the image represented there. It was Om, of course. Like many small-town teenagers, I was supremely oblivious in those days, exposed only to mainstream American influences, and not yet open to any form of alternative spiritual philosophy. Yet something about that squiggle shirt hinted at a rich, mysterious undercurrent at work even way back then, a hidden ocean of spirituality surging deep beneath the unknowing surface of my life. And although I did my best to remain ignorant of its presence, the power and majesty of that vast ocean would not be denied for much longer.
Yeah.